Hi, welcome to the Women in Solar Energy Forum. We're really glad you're here. It's the Solar 2020 Renewable Energy Vision, and this is the Women in Solar Energy Forum. My name is Marlene Brown, and I'll be moderating this session. And before I introduce our speakers, let me cover some logistics. There's both a Q&A section and a chat section for you to use during this session. So if you want to speak with other attendees or make comments during the session, use the chat function. If you want to ask questions, please use the Q&A function. So also, specifically during this session, I'm going to ask that, because this is Women in Solar, this is for all of us, and I welcome the guys that are here. I don't know who's exactly on the call, but because I want it to also be a networking session, if you have things to share or want to share with others, please use the chat function. You can put links in there, you can put comments in there, you can put, whatever you want to share with others that you think would be interesting information for all of us. Okay, let me keep going. So use the Q&A section to submit any questions for during the session, anytime during the session. So once we finish, everybody can continue talking by going to into the conference, into the networking lounge, into the Women in Solar Energy Forum chat room. So we'll be in there. The speakers will go there afterwards, and we can keep, for a little while, we'll keep answering some questions. Okay, the purpose of the WISE, or Women in Solar Energy Forum, is to inspire women to become more technically involved in solar, not just peripheral to it. It's easy for us to talk about what we do, but this isn't a forum for us to talk about our jobs, but about how we got where we are and the obstacles and barriers that we've come up against and broke through or just moved out of the way to continue on our path. This is a forum for accomplished women to share lessons learned and heartfelt stories about their lives. It is the story about the journey. Okay, I have a little bit more housekeeping stuff here. All right. So I need to tell you that don't forget to visit sponsors and partners in the exhibit hall. You can sign into the Solar 2020 call for action at aces.org/conference. Now let me introduce our first speaker. So Caitlin Bunker is a PhD, PE, and principal at the Rocky Mountain Institute. She leads the Island Energy Program at Rocky Mountain Institute, including leading energy modeling and technical analysis to complete integrated resource plans in partnership with Caribbean island utilities, governments, and regulators. These plans take a whole system view of various options for the future of electricity sector on each island and lead to specific investment plans for clean energy solutions. She has worked closely with stakeholders in San Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, Belize, and the Virgin Islands, the Turks and Caicos, and Bermuda. Caitlin also leads modeling efforts related to small island microgrid opportunities. She joined RMI after completing a PhD in electrical engineering from Michigan Technological University in Houghton, Minnesota. All right, everybody. We're going to play the first video. So these presentations are recorded, and we have our speakers live. And so they're really going to engage after we play the presentations. Okay, Evie, take it away. Evie, we can't hear sound. Evie, don't forget to enable the options when you turn it on.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Bunker. I'm a principal at Rocky Mountain Institute. We're a global nonprofit working to create a clean, prosperous, and secure low-carbon future. So in short, I work in renewable energy, and that includes solar. I'm excited to have this opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm planning to share a bit of my journey so far and hopefully share some insights that we can take away going forward. So we'll start towards the beginning, I suppose. Here's me. At around this age, I was telling people that I wanted to be an artist ballerina when I grew up. But clearly, I always enjoyed the technical side of things along with the creative. And eventually, I realized that engineering would bring the perfect mix of opportunities that I wanted to have. I wanted to improve the lives of others, to be creative and come up with new solutions, and to use the technical side of my brain, to use math and science. I was lucky to be really inspired and encouraged by both of my parents in this. My dad is an engineer and my mom is a biochemist. My mom actually stayed home with my brother and I for most of my childhood, and so I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back now, I had two really great examples from the two of them. My dad working, my mom choosing to stay at home, and together raising our family and supporting my brother and I in whatever we wanted to pursue, and certainly instilling creativity and science for us. And that taught me from an early age that all options are valid when it comes to the type of work you're doing, where you're working, being home with family, all very valid choices for people to make. So I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I wasn't sure which type of engineering, but I heard that electrical engineers use the most math. So that took me to electrical engineering. And once I started studying it, I really just enjoyed the classes and the content of it, so I stuck with it. I attended Michigan Tech University, way up north in northern Michigan. And as I said, really loved electrical engineering and the things that I was learning. But particularly once I decided to start to focus in power and energy, there were just so few women in my classes. There was never anything overt that made me feel unwelcome or like I didn't belong in that field. But the numbers were just so small. You know, I remember classes where there was only one other woman. When I graduated from undergrad, about 70 of us in our class, there were 5 women graduating in electrical engineering. And so it was a tough situation at times just to, you know, not necessarily feel unwelcome, but also to look around and not see others that look like you, that look like me in my classes. So one opportunity that I found to actually connect with other women was through the Society of Women Engineers. I joined as a student at the Michigan Tech section, and I really enjoyed it for connecting with other women, as I mentioned, other women engineers, but also for the opportunity to build and practice leadership skills in a safe environment. You know, even as an undergraduate student, I had the opportunity to be the president of this section of the Society of Women Engineers, gain and build skills that then help prepare me for my career. I also had an early experience in SWE that helped me recognize the importance of structure and rules, but only to a certain point. So in order to be considered an active member of our Michigan Tech SWE section, you had to do a certain number of activities and volunteer at a certain number of things throughout each semester. And in one of my first semesters, I had to miss one of the core activities because I was under the weather. And I thought that I had sort of worked that out with the SWE leadership team and everything would be okay. But towards the end of the semester, I was told, oh, you're not actually an active member because you didn't meet this requirement. And we ended up working it out, and I was able to volunteer somewhere else and sort of make up that requirement. But it did almost cause me to walk away from SWE after just 1 year as a member. And given everything I've gained from this organization, I'll talk about it again later in this presentation. I'm so glad that I didn't. And so, you know, as an engineer, I'm someone who really appreciates structure and having a clear structure to things. But this was an early example for me that structure, rules are good, but only to a certain point. There's got to be some flexibility in certain cases as well. The other early inspiration that I took from SWE was to pursue my PhD. I was pretty sure I wanted to go to graduate school, but I hadn't decided master's, PhD, what do I really want to focus on? And at one of the SWE annual conferences, I attended the awards banquet where SWE recognizes women engineers who are making great contributions either in their fields or to women in engineering. And it just happened that that year, a lot of the recipients were people with PhDs. And so seeing them receive their awards, reading about them in the materials really sparked for me, you know, I think I want to go after my PhD as well. And so that's what I did. I decided to stay at Michigan Tech, stay in electrical engineering, and pursue my PhD. There's a photo of me at a research session for that. And I would say I had overall very good support, but varying levels. So I want to mention my advisor, who was extremely supportive and encouraged me to apply for National Science Foundation funding when I was still an undergrad. And without that encouragement from him to do that, and then his support in preparing a proposal and a research plan and getting that submitted, I never would have even thought to apply for that type of funding, let alone be successful in it, which I was in the end. And so I count the support from that advisor as crucial in helping me advance and be successful in graduate school. At the same time, some of the sort of mixed things I heard, for example, a student who said to me that when I had applied, but we hadn't heard back yet, that of course I would get the fellowship, but only because I am a woman studying electrical engineering. And so, you know, small comments like that were made over time, and I'm never very good at handling those in the moment, and I think that's okay. For some people, if you're able to respond immediately, that's great. If not, for me, it takes a little bit more time to process, but it has helped strengthen my thinking and my approach to, you know, think back on that and go, no, actually, if I get this fellowship, which I did in the end, it's because of my work that I put in, the research proposal that I'm putting forward, not just because I'm a woman studying engineering. Another example that I want to share from graduate school is about the power of teamwork. So a very important intramural sport at Michigan Tech is broomball. You can see it's played outside in the winter. So I was able to get some of my fellow electrical engineering grad students to form a team. This is us. And part of my goal was just to get us outside, even though it was winter, spend some time outside away from our studies. And I think that was really healthy for all of us as individuals. As a team of graduate students, each with our own projects, but working towards similar goals. And so this was a great experience and just example for me of the power of bringing a team together, working together on something and having fun. You know, we weren't necessarily the best team at broomball itself, but we worked hard, we had fun. In the end, we did receive the Golden Broom Award for sportsmanship. So it also taught me that, you know, winning can often look different than what you first thought it might look like. Something I've reflected on a bit is the fact that I did not actually leave the US until I was in grad school. And I never pictured myself working outside of the United States. And I don't mean to say that there's anything wrong with working locally or working in the US. I think there's very important work to be done here as well. But I realized looking back that I almost missed opportunities that have really shaped my career and my life because I did not have any international experience or exposure to other cultures until I was in graduate school. So my very first international trip, which this photo is from, was to India for a Society of Women Engineers conference. I flew there all by myself, which felt big at the time. And I did know a couple of people at the conference once I got there, including one of my mentors. I also had the opportunity to stay an extra day in India and visit my friend's mom who lives there. So that got me the opportunity to experience more outside of the conference center as well. This first international trip really just opened my eyes to the value of learning about different cultures and different perspectives and how much that can help me to expand my thinking and my approaches and just my approach to work and life. So despite that, though, I still stayed very U.S. focused through the end of my PhD program and when I started at Rocky Mountain Institute, where I work now. However, after a few months at RMI, I had the opportunity to join our Islands Energy program. And I thought, okay, I'll try that out for a few months. And here we are about 5 years later, and I am one of the principals for the program. So we partner with island nations to define and accelerate their energy transitions away from burning expensive and imported diesel fuel to using more distributed and local renewable energy resources. As you can imagine, solar is a great option for many islands in the Caribbean. This photo is when we were able to gather a lot of the women that were present at a green energy conference in the Caribbean and start to form a women in renewable energy network focused in islands. One interesting takeaway or lesson that I've learned through this work is how hard it can be to sometimes strike the right balance. So as a woman, and this is something maybe some of you can relate with, I sometimes feel a need to put a greater emphasis on my skills and my expertise and really just sell myself in order to be taken seriously as an engineer and as a professional. At the same time, when I'm working overseas and coming in as an American, I want to show up very open-minded and ready to learn about the communities and the countries that I'm working in, hear what's important to them, work together on solutions that are going to best meet their needs. Not show up like I know it all and I already have figured out the perfect solution for them. So that can be a very tough balance that I have not seen many of my male colleagues have to consider, is how to both bring that open approach, ready to learn and work together, and have to almost sell your skills and emphasize the technical and just overall skills that I bring and can offer as well. So that's been a very interesting balance to work towards. And I want to close coming back once more to the power of networks and the Society of Women Engineers. I mentioned earlier the inspiration that came from the SWE Awards banquet that helped me decide that I wanted to pursue my PhD. Fast forward about 10 years later, and I did receive one of those awards. So this is from 2018. I received the SWE Distinguished New Engineer Award, and the photo here is with one of my colleagues who was at the conference as well. SWE does continue to be a central part of my life as a professional. I volunteer with my local section and with the global organization to continue supporting women in engineering. And as I mentioned before, continuing to gain leadership experience, practice and build even more advanced leadership skills that then I can take back to my career and my workplace as well. Not to mention the connection and the networks I've been able to build with women engineers all around the world. I want to also highlight RISE, whose logo is up here as well. It's another organization where I've gained a lot of great connection and support from other women working in renewable energy. I think SWE, RISE, forums just like this one are crucial to keep conversations going and to keep elevating women and making it easier for us to support one another and lift one another up. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm really happy to join the discussions going online this afternoon, and also just to stay connected with any of you going forward if you'd like to reach out and connect. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Caitlin. That was wonderful. So for those of you who are just joining or that missed at the beginning, I'm going to go through the presentations. We have 4 presentations. Today we have just 3 of our speakers are here. One of them, one of our folks, her daughter's not doing so well, so she couldn't be on the call, and she's also overseas. But we have 3 of the 4 speakers here, but we have 4 presentations. I'm going to go through, introduce the speaker, go through the presentation, and at the end, we're going to have lots of time for questions and answers and networking. If you have anything to share with the other women or anybody else on the call, please put that in the chat. If you have questions as we go, just put them in the Q&A section. So we have lots of interesting things to talk to with our panelists afterwards. Our next speaker is Marta Victoria, and she's in Denmark, and she is on the call. It's evening there. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Engineering at Aarhus University. So Marta obtained her bachelor's and master's in aeronautical engineering from Technical University of Madrid in 2007. She did her thesis on high efficiency concentrating photovoltaic modules at the Solar Energy Institute and spent 4 months as a visiting researcher at the Sun Lab of the University of Ottawa in Canada. In 2014, she obtained her PhD and came in summa cum laude and received the Outstanding Doctorate Award assigned by UPM to the top PhD thesis. Since 2019, she's worked as assistant professor at the Department of Engineering, Aarhus University in Denmark, where she teaches courses on thermodynamics, solar energy, and renewable energy systems. Her current research interests include the modeling of large-scale energy systems with high renewable penetration and the analysis of how to integrate large amounts of solar photovoltaic electricity. Okay, Evie, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marta Victoria, and I work as assistant professor at the Department of Engineering of Aarhus University in Denmark. And I'm really happy of being here today and sharing with you some experiences of my life as a woman in the solar energy sector. I have prepared a presentation reflecting of some of the events in my life and trying to classify them as those experiences that empower me, and also remark some experiences that question me or maybe doubt about my role as a female in the energy sector and in the academia. I would like to start by mentioning that very recently I realized that I have grown up with having such a nice poster as the one that you see in the photograph in my room when I was a kid. So this was a campaign in the 80s in Spain, and my parents decided to hang this poster on my room, and it actually reads, "Don't limit her education, she is a woman of the 21st century." And I'm sure that reading this poster every day, as well as having parents that have supported me on all my decisions, have been very significant for allowing me to select and to try to achieve the different goals that I have pursued in my research life. I also remember having a very good physics teacher at high school, and I'm sure that that also had a very significant impact on my life. So when I finished high school, I decided to study engineering, and I moved to Madrid. I studied bachelor and master engineering in aerospace at the Technical University of Madrid. And I remember at that time being surrounded by a lot of other female students. You can see in the photograph, my colleagues, we made a joint master project, and we were a group of 2 women and 2 men. And this somehow represents the diversity at my School of Engineering at that time. On the other hand, I also remember having very few female professors. I would say 4 or 5 at the most during my whole bachelor, which is, of course, not very encouraging. After my bachelor and my master, I decided to study a PhD on solar energy. I did that because I was very interested on renewable energies and solar energy in particular. So I conducted a PhD on high efficiency concentrating photovoltaic system at the Solar Energy Institute of Technical University of Madrid, one of the oldest research centers on this topic that very recently got to its 40th anniversary. During that time, that was completely amazing. I was surrounded by a lot of female researchers. You can see in the photographs, some of them performing activities related to the growth of high-efficiency multi-junction solar cells and the using advanced characterization techniques. I was surrounded, as I mentioned, by a lot of female colleagues, some of them older PhD students, And I remember feeling very proud when they did amazing presentations at conferences. I remember wanting to be like them, and they act as very nice role models for me. At that time, I also get to know female top researchers in solar photovoltaics that also were a nice role model for me. I had the opportunity to spend 4 months at the University of Ottawa in Canada, also with a very nice female top researchers in solar PV. But not everything was wonderful at that time. I also remember these kind of comments, such as, well, you have such a nice dress and makeup today. And I listened to this just after giving my first oral presentation at a conference, and I will have appreciated that the compliment was directed towards my presentation or my results. But also things like, well, you know, the students go to your class because you are the young and female teaching assistant, or, well, people stop by your poster because you are the only female in the room. And right now, I'm quite sure that all those comments were incorrect, and they don't represent the reason why I achieved such things. But it's true that when you are younger, it's difficult to know how to react to such comments. So after my PhD, I became to be very involved into public discussion of the energy transition in Spain, and I would like to share with you one experience that happened to me. So I was invited to participate in a public debate regarding the energy transition organized by a very big company that was focused on organizing such events and also on communication. So the event was quite well. I think the audience was quite close to the arguments that I was using, because I was clearly the most pro-renewables and pro-fast transition, energy transition in Spain. And when the event was over and I was just saying goodbye, the 2 guys organizing the debate told me that they had a present for me, but that they thought that I won't be using that present a lot. And at that point, I assumed that what was going on is that the present was prepared for someone, was somehow very formal, because I was the youngest and somehow the most casually dressed in that debate. So I said, okay, it's fine, don't worry, that's fine. I took the present and I just went home. To my surprise, when I opened the present later at home, I discovered that it contains a tie. And this was very surprising for me, because this kind of big company, whose main focus is organizing such events and inviting experts to have such discussions, well, they think that having a default present that is only valid for male is good enough, as if only male can be asked to participate as experts in this kind of public debates. I discussed this experience in one newspapers in Spain, where there's a little blog regarding such experience, and where women can write about them and communicate each other. And I was really shocked about that. So motivated for this kind of experiences, I, together with a lot of other women and men, participated in the manifesto that was called Energy, No Without Women, and that was signed by more than 100 men, more than 25 organizations, and more than 300 women. And the main purpose was to make sure that there was female experts were also consulted in public debates. So people signing this manifest, well, they commit to not participate in any event related to energy if the event has more than 2 speakers, and if it does not include the participation as an expert of at least 1 woman. So trying to make sure that women were participating in such a public presentation. The manifesto was quite successful, and I was very glad that we were able to push for this discussion in the energy sector in Spain. So after that, I moved to Denmark. I'm currently an assistant professor at Aarhus University. The good thing about that is, of course, that I got the position, and that right now I have a super nice mentor who is a super top researcher at the university, and I can discuss my concerns with her. The drawback is that I'm the only female professor in my section, which includes more than 30 professors. That was a little disappointing. I was expecting, when I moved to Denmark, I was expecting this paradise of gender balanced society, a Scandinavian society, but I didn't get it, or at least that's not going on in my section. But I think that what I'm seeing is this classic figure that it's called the scissors diagram. This represents data for Aarhus University, but very similar diagrams can be found for other institutions, research institutions and universities. And it shows how for the bachelor students, the number of female students is usually higher than the number of men. But when we go into the PhD, the assistant professorship, the associate and the full professorships, this flipped. And we end up with having much more males in professorship than females. I think it's really interesting that it's really necessary that we understand why this is happening and how we can avoid that this happens. So at the end of this talk, I would like to mention a little bit my tricks, my strategies, what I'm trying to do now. So I would like to finish with these 5 ideas. First thing that I try to do is I try to get involved in networks, both in Spain and in Denmark. I think it's good to communicate among each other in events such as the one organized today. I try to talk about gender imbalance in academia. I think it's very important that everyone is aware of that this is existing, and we should discuss how to improve the situation. I also try to read women. I have my personal challenge this year, 2020, of reading scientific or novels, books only written by women. I'm trying to compensate somehow for my previous life in which I have mostly been reading male authors. And yes, this COVID situation is allowing me a lot of extra time for reading. I'm also committed to reference to women in my lectures. I teach courses on solar energy, on renewable energy systems, and on thermodynamics, and I'm trying to make sure that I reference those women who have significantly contributed to those disciplines. And I'm also trying to review who I'm following on Twitter. Do I have a gender balanced way of achieving, of getting the information, and how can I improve that? And finally, I have realized that I do not need to avoid conflict. This is not about, for me, this is not about being the perfect feminist or being in the perfect wall. It's about realizing that we live situations that create conflict for us. And for me, that conflict makes me reflect and makes me learn. What I do is that I have created a safe environment, a safe space with a few friends in which I can openly discuss with them what things had happened to me, where, in which situation I didn't know how to react with some colleagues or with some students, and we try to think together, how can we do it better the next time that those things happen, because probably they are going to happen. So with this, I would like to finish here. Thank you for your attention, and I'm willing to participate in the discussion that we will be having later, and I'm also open for further discussion via emails or any other means. So thank you very much.
Hi, wonderful talk. That was really great. Okay, our next speaker is Christine Linz. She's Executive Director of GWNet, Global Women's Network for the Energy Transition. Christine Linz works as an Executive Director of GNet, the Global Network for Energy Transition, which aims at empowering women in the sustainable energy sector. Furthermore, she runs her own consultancy and is a member of the board of directors of ISIS, the International Solar Energy Society. From July 2011 till March 2018, Christine acted as Executive Secretary of REN 21, the Renewable Energy Policy Network of the 21st Century, headquartered at UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programs in Paris, France. Between 2001 and 2011, Ms. Lind served as Secretary General of the European Renewable Energy Council. Previously, she worked in a regional energy agency in Austria, promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. She holds a master's degree in international economics and applied languages. She has more than 23 years of working experience in the field of renewable energy sources and energy efficiency. Okay, Evie, take it away.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation to the Women in Solar Energy Forum at the ACES conference. It's great to be with you, though virtually. And I was asked to talk about my career path. It's always a bit difficult to talk about oneself, but anyway, I'll give it a try. Why don't you look for a proper job? I was confronted with this question from my dad when I told him back in 2000 that I considered moving to Brussels to help set up an umbrella organization of the European renewable energy industry. Before, I've been working in a regional energy agency in my home country, Austria, on renewable energy and energy efficiency projects, and have kind of already started to enjoy this sector. I studied economy, international economics and applied languages at university and happened to start my career in this field. And when I was given this opportunity to move to Brussels, back then renewables were still at an infant stage and nobody thought that they would develop the way they are. And for my dad back then, as an engineer designing coal-fired power plants, this was not a serious sector with promising career opportunities. I nevertheless took the job offer and witnessed the rise of the renewable energy industry, first in Europe, where I was working for 10 years in Brussels in this field, and then globally when working for REN 21, a multi-stakeholder network for renewable energy that is based at UN Environment Program in Paris. I was working there from 2011 to 2018. And meanwhile, I'm happy to acknowledge that my dad is proud of the career choice of his daughter. The coal-fired power plants that he designed have been closed down in the meantime, and well, renewables have been booming. 2 decades ago, no one imagined that renewable energy would account for the lion's share of all newly installed power capacity worldwide. Nobody foresaw that China would become the renewable energy powerhouse of the world, and nobody would have thought that more than half of global renewable energy investments would happen in emerging economies and developing countries. Not to mention the fact that discussion about 100% renewables by mid-century would gain increasing attention in the public debate that was back then far away from even being considered as a serious topic. However, we see that we still have a very long way to go because if we are serious about the commitments made in Paris, then it is clear and there's consensus that we have to radically reconsider how we produce and consume energy, and this transition will not be an easy one, and it will require really lots of talented people all around the world. According to latest statistics from IRENA, there are currently about 11 million people working in the renewables industry, and this figure is supposed to go up to 42 million by the year 2050. And out of these 11 million today, there are only 32% women in this field, which is higher than in oil and gas, where the share of women is only at 22%. But nevertheless, we see that a lot still needs to happen. And this actually then also brought me to the next step in my career. Back in 2017, I co-founded GWNet, the Global Women's Network for the Energy Transition, an international NGO located in Austria, which aims at advancing the energy transition by empowering women working in this space. Because I think that a complex process such as an energy transition really requires the best talents from both men and women. And we need to include much more women in this space in order to make it happen. And that's why we have created this membership-based organization, which now already has more than 1,200 members from 90 plus countries. Runs a Women in Energy Expert platform. So those of you who are interested, please go to our website, www.globalwomennet.org, and register your profile, because we are kind of sick and tired of these statements that there are not enough women out there, and men-only panels are just not appropriate in the 21st century anymore. We are doing lots of other things, such as networking events, studies. We run lots of mentoring programs. And this has also been an important part of my career, that I had great mentors on the one hand, and I also give back somehow and then participate as mentor in several programs. I think mentorship is really something very special, because it's a very special relationship. It's neither a collegial relationship, nor is it a friendship. It's more some advice from a neutral perspective. And I have really cherished this throughout my career, and think that if those that have already made experiences have like this a chance to give back. Often I'm asked what I think are the most important elements in one's career. I think it's a very individual thing. I think it's important that you choose a field that you really enjoy working in, because the day only has 24 hours. You spend a lot of time at work. And I think that if you do something that you really like and where you have your heart, then you are also good at it. And secondly, I think it's important to seize opportunities. Throughout my career, I was lucky that, first of all, I found the area with energy transition that I really burned for, so to say. And secondly, I was able to seize opportunities that were presented to myself. First, when I was offered this job in Brussels. And it initially started with an informal conversation with a colleague who gave a presentation where I didn't understand all the elements. And so I just questioned him after his presentation, and that's how a dialogue established. And I then found out that they are looking for somebody, and so I submitted my CV, so forth and so on. And then I think, so when these opportunities present themselves, you then need to seize the opportunity. And often, at least in my case, it was when I went to Brussels, I didn't go on an expat package. I just quit my job, which was a stable one in a state-owned agency. But I felt like I want to progress. I want to look beyond the Austrian borders. And so I seized the opportunity, and retrospectively, it was the right thing to do. But of course, at the moment when you do it, I was not sure on how it's going to work out. And the same then when I was offered the chance of taking up the head of secretariat of REN 21, I also I really felt a call for it, because REN 21 is a multi-stakeholder network, so I really enjoyed working at this junction between industry, private, and public sector. I think that's very interesting because I think you really need both these two sectors to advance the energy transition. So I was very convinced about the opportunity, and I kind of followed REN 21 for very long, and I thought that this could be an interesting career step. And then when there was a vacancy, I basically applied for it. So I think it's good, it's important to then always be at the right moment with the right ideas. And at least for me, it was really that now my career looks very planned. I started off on the regional level in Austria, in my home country, Austria, then went on to the European level, then went on to the global level, and now I'm the executive director of the Global Women's Network. But this really developed, and like nobody could foresee the development of renewables 20 years ago. I couldn't foresee how my career would look like, and I think that's sometimes a bit discomforting, maybe, but it's also interesting that you don't always know the next step. And at least for me, the secret was to seize the opportunity when it presents itself. And life is just simply full of miracles, and right now I am a young mother. I have a little daughter who is now six months old, and she gives me a lot of joy, me and my partner. But I also feel that really what I'm doing is the right thing, because I would like to leave this planet in good conditions, leave it for the next generation, and contribute a little bit to making it a better place. And if I should summarize my life philosophy with a quote, I would choose the one from Gandhi: "Be the change you want to see in this world." And for me, the change is very much has to happen in the energy field. People will feel very differently, but I think it's important that you follow your call. And if you do this, I'm sure that you'll be able to make a great contribution. With this, I thank you for your attention and look forward to the live discussion in this virtual space. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Christine, even though that's virtual. Okay, our final speaker is Shelley Cohen. She is Director of Solar Programs for the District of Columbia Sustainable Energy Utility. Shelley Cohen is a career energy efficiency and renewable energy professional with extensive experience in the Washington, D.C. region. Her expertise in developing turnkey renewable programs and delivering comprehensive energy services to large building projects has been expansive. Currently, Ms. Cohen serves as the Director of Solar Programs for the District of Columbia Sustainable Energy Utility, where she manages the administration of the Solar for All program. The Solar for All program incentivizes the rapid deployment of solar across the district, with output going to benefit low-income residents. She oversees all aspects of program administration, including the program's $32 million three-year budget. In addition, she manages a team of 8 solar industry professionals that work to break down barriers and make solar accessible and affordable. Over her career, she has worked in private industry, nonprofit, and government sectors. She served as CEO and co-founder of the Alpha Solar Group, a woman-owned solar consulting firm focused on solar microgrids and storage solutions. During her 14 years at Ameresco, she developed over 15 megawatts of renewable energy and implemented energy efficiency projects with local governments and learning institutions. She works to advance the role of women in the clean energy industry through her leadership on many national and regional boards in the Mid-Atlantic region, including the National Wildlife Federation, MDV, SIA, so the Maryland District and District of Columbia and Virginia, SIA, and DC Environmental Film Festival. She's a graduate of Tufts University and holds an MPA from the Maxwell School at Syracuse University. She lives in DC with her husband and 2 daughters in an eco-friendly home that includes 12 kilowatts of solar and cool roof. Okay, Evie? Final presentation.
Hello, my name is Shelley Cohen. I'm Director of Solar Programs at the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. I'm thrilled to be here today and very appreciative of Women in Solar Energy and the American Solar Energy Society for inviting me to participate in this session. I hope my journey inspires someone, and I'm very excited to share it with all of you. The family joke was, how did I even get into the environmental field? My parents weren't very adventurous. They didn't really have much interest in travel, and I spent a lot of my childhood in the backyard dreaming of being a doctor, a singer, or a dancer. But my mother was very politically active, and she worked on a lot of campaigns, which I found very fascinating. My father was a successful entrepreneur who worked really hard at various businesses. These experiences and watching them really shaped my life and what I would become in the future. When I went to college, I really had a turning point. I had a wonderful roommate who was beautiful, kind, thoughtful, but also very sick. She had cancer and arrived at college in full remission, but unfortunately she did not live to graduate. She was a victim of a cancer cluster in Massachusetts that was linked to a Dow chemical factory. And that for me was the realization that what we do to the environment really has a huge impact on our lives. After graduating from Tufts University, I knew I wanted to work in some capacity to protect the environment. I worked on Senator Joe Lieberman's campaign to get him elected to the Senate, and I was able to go back and secure a job in his office. One of the exciting issues that he took up was protecting the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge from oil drilling. He felt that this was a pristine area that deserved protection. He and Senator Wellstone from Minnesota decided to filibuster a bill that would allow for drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Both offices got together, we provided all of the information needed for the filibuster, and after 18 hours, both senators were successful in defeating the bill. It was a huge victory for both offices, not only the senators, but also all of the people who participated and provided information. When I went to work on Capitol Hill, that's when I met my other inspiration and climate hero, then Senator Al Gore. Here we are at his book signing. I still have my book to this day, which really became a Bible for me about the climate crisis and how we need to work to protect our environment for future generations. I was in graduate school and at the Maxwell School at Syracuse University, and we needed to do an internship. So I came back to DC and did an internship in the White House at the Office on Environmental Policy, which Al Gore oversaw as vice president. And then I couldn't wait to graduate from graduate school so I could get back to DC again and work for the White House on something called the President's Council on Sustainable Development, which was a bipartisan task force that Al Gore oversaw that was looking at ways that we could create policy that could not only have a prosperous economy, but also protect the environment at the same time. I continued to follow Al Gore throughout my career. I was trained as a climate leader in 2012 and also served as a mentor in his climate leadership program in 2018. After working at the White House, I wanted to see sustainability in action. I was very fortunate to get a job at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency working on the Landfill Methane Outreach Program. The Landfill Methane Outreach Program provided services to landfill owners and communities to help them use the landfill gas from their landfills as an energy resource, instead of allowing the methane to go uncontrolled into the atmosphere. As the team lead, I traveled around talking with landfills, going to conferences, and just generally explaining what services we provided. And I will say, this being a very male-dominated industry, it took a long time for people to respect my role in the industry. They often thought I was someone's daughter or someone's wife. And that was a bit demoralizing, but I only strengthened my resolve to work harder and to show that women belonged in this industry as much as men. While I was at the EPA, the administration changed, and it appeared that they would not be as supportive as the previous administration with environmental and climate-related issues. And so I sought to take my talents elsewhere, and I was recruited by a company called Amoresco. At the time, it was a relatively new startup, and I was excited by the opportunity to participate in a company that was protecting the environment, but also able to do good while doing well. And it was an incredible learning experience. There were a lot of bumps and bruises along the way as they were sort of getting their foothold in the industry. But I learned so much about the business side of things and interactions and what concerns were at the community and at the state level. And in my job there, I was able to implement over 15 megawatts of renewable energy, and I did multiple projects related to energy efficiency. Here's one example where we did an energy efficiency project for Newcastle County in Delaware and saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars on their utility bills. So it was really a thrill to be able to help communities at that level to save money for their citizens and to be able to do environmental projects and reduce their carbon footprint. I really owe a lot of the success in my life to the strong women who came before me and really inspired me to do big things. Of course, there was my mother, who was a huge inspiration. And when I was a little girl, I was always making these collages of strong women that I had met and who really inspired me to be true to myself and follow my passions. I've also had so many strong influences in my life. My mentor, Diane Dillon Ridgely, continues to inspire me and my girls, as you can see. And of course, pivotal figures in our world, such as Wangari Maathai and, of course, Hillary Clinton. These are both women who fought for justice, who have showed us strength and courage and passion and really believe in what they're doing and really inspired me to continue forward with what I'm doing. Throughout my career, I've also looked for opportunities to be of service and to give back. And one of the tremendous opportunities in my life was to serve on the board of the National Wildlife Federation, where I served as a board member for 9 years. And this tremendous organization gives a voice to wildlife and to wild places so that we can protect these places for future generations. One of the things that started bubbling within the organization and throughout all of our membership was the fact that there are many unsung women leaders in conservation. And so the organization got together, and this is a picture of the first inaugural meeting of Women in Conservation Leadership, where we work to bring more women into the field and also tell the stories of those unsung heroes who've come before us who have really worked hard to give wildlife and wild places a voice. I was also very fortunate in 2015 to be selected as a fellow for the Impact Center's Women's Executive Leadership Fellow Program. This gave me the opportunity to interact with all of the other fellows, to share best practices and talk about different things that were going on in our lives, in our professions, and to network and interact in a very different way at a very different level. Many of these women were going through transitions or trying to find work-life balance. So it was so helpful to be able to talk with other strong women about these very real issues. It also gave me the strength and the courage to think about what my next step was going to be. And it gave me the sort of the wings that I needed to move into my next endeavor, which was to start my own business. After the Women's Executive Leadership Forum, I was inspired. I'd been with Amoresco for 14 years and I was ready for a new opportunity. That's when I made the decision to become an entrepreneur and start my own business. I had the support of my best friend and business partner, Amy Christensen, and we started a company called Alpha Solar Group. Alpha Solar Group offered advice to homeowners who were looking to go solar, and we also offered business development services to companies that maybe didn't have the capacity to do their own business development. It was a lot of fun. I learned so much, but there were so many challenges, and it was very difficult. In particular, this was a time when the new administration was offering tariffs on solar panels and aluminum and steel. And this really impacted my business in an adverse way. We were making the decision whether to put the business aside or trying to come up with a resiliency plan and change our business model. And fortunately, that's when I was offered my dream job at the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. I currently work as Director of Solar Programs for the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. And yes, this is my dream job. I get to work on a job where I have a positive impact on the DC area where I have lived for almost 30 years. Through my job as Director of Solar Programs, I work on a program called Solar for All, where we work to rapidly deploy solar across the DC area to comply with the mandate to go 100% solar by 2032. All of the output from the solar that we install goes to benefit low-income residents of the city and helps to reduce their utility bills as well as the carbon footprint of the city. This is truly a dream job, and I feel so fortunate to be working with the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. There are so many lessons learned, and I'm happy to share some of the things that I learned along the way. First and most importantly, work your network. There's so many amazing women in this industry, and these are women that you can look to for advice or if you're looking for a job. But it's important to stay engaged and keep in touch. Also, look for inspiration. Find those things that fuel your passion and keep that passion going. Look for opportunities. There's so many opportunities to get involved, to be engaged, and those opportunities really enrich who you are as a person. Also, work hard and grow on the job. One example of this is that I was the first person at Amoresco to become LEED certified. It was really important for me as an individual to have this certification, but it also inspired many of my colleagues to go get the certification as well. I always recommend to people to do one resume activity each year. That shows that you are willing to be a lifelong learner and your resume doesn't become stale. Also, it's so important to be of service and to give back. We are so fortunate where we are in this industry, so please look for those opportunities to be of service. And one of the ways that I like to do that is to become a mentor. I'm always looking to mentor people, especially women trying to get into the solar or environmental field. And finally, don't be afraid to fail. It's very humbling, but it also builds a lot of character and gives you experiences that you can carry with you as you go and grow through your career. Thank you. I also want to say, be a role model. Walk the walk. Be authentic. Here is my husband and I. We're about to put 12 kilowatts of solar on our roof. That was 10 years ago. We haven't looked back. It's been incredible for us in terms of cost saving and reducing our carbon footprint. Also, be proud of who you are and believe in yourself. This is something that I'm trying to instill in my girls, and I'm also trying to instill it in other girls as well by being a troop leader for Girl Scouts for Troop 42012 here in the Washington, D.C. area. Lastly, I wanted to dedicate this presentation to my big inspirations, my mother and my girls, Sienna and Sabrina. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope my journey has inspired you, and I look forward to connecting with many of you in the future. Thank you again for listening.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Okay, let's get our speakers all on camera. Thank you so much for your presentations. I'm sorry that Christine isn't going to be able to be with us. Her child wasn't feeling too good, and plus it's the nighttime where she is in Europe. But thank you. So I am gonna, before I start with questions, I just want to thank everybody. And Evie, Margaret Ward, is with us. She's our helper. So she's also going to help keep track of everything. If you have anything to share, we have at least almost 20 minutes. So if you have anything to share with other women on the call that you want to capture and share with everybody, please put that in the chat. If you have questions for the speakers, and these speakers are awesome and you should ask them really good, challenging questions, whatever. This is a safe space for us to talk about things that are hard, things that are keeping us back, things that maybe that you've been worried about or scared to ask. But please, this is a safe environment for all of us. And please ask our speakers some questions. I'm going to start with the first question, and then I'm going to let everybody else ask questions. Well, through the Q&A. So please start typing up your questions. Okay, so maybe it's just me, or maybe it's because I'm a woman, but I'm still obsessed with this. I tend to look at the big picture and envision how can we cast our net further and reach more women, especially women outside of our circles. So I want to see women more technically involved in renewables. How do we engage? This is for all the speakers, so you can answer one at a time. I don't care however you want to go. So how do we engage and encourage more women to become more technically involved in solar and renewables?
Can start going. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to be here today. It's truly an honor, and I'm so excited to participate. Currently, according to the Solar Foundation, 24% of the solar industry includes women, and that number is really low. I think there's a necessary dialogue that needs to happen between women, that the solar industry and renewables in general is a great career path. And we have to start articulating what those opportunities are and trying to encourage more women to look at the renewables industry as a pathway for career growth going forward. That needs to start in academia, it needs to start in high school, encouraging more girls to look at science and math, and hopefully as they feel empowered, they'll start looking for pathways into the renewables career. We definitely have to get that 24% up.
Yes, I would agree. Also want to just say thanks again for the opportunity to be here and to participate today. I was thinking along the same lines that I think there's opportunities at different points and at different sort of levels to encourage and incorporate more women, especially into technical roles in clean energy. And so some of that starts young and inspiring young people as they're starting to think about opportunities and really emphasizing all the great parts of a career in renewable energy. And the opportunity I mentioned a bit for me when I thought about engineering, it was definitely about the technical side. I loved math and science and I knew I wanted to work in that, but that's not necessarily the message that we want to get out, that engineers must be great at math and science, because that's not all of it, right? There's a lot of creativity involved. And the other big piece for me was having the opportunity to improve the lives of other people. And so spreading that more holistic message about technical fields in general and opportunities in renewable energy, I think could be really valuable. And then I think there's a lot to be done to support women who have started on this pathway and are either in school or working in clean energy and technical fields, and continuing to support one another as we grow in our careers, so that we stay as well and aren't leaving the technical fields as well.
Yeah, hello everyone. Some comments in the same line. I think when we grow up, we realize that we like our job and that we are actually good at doing that. But when we are younger, it's very difficult not to feel a little, or not to question a little bit ourselves. So the key is, how do we make sure that those who are still in a position to be questioning themselves, how do we send a super powerful message to them and tell them, do not hesitate. You can be a good engineer. You could be a good technical person. If you like the technology, if you like the science, you're gonna do it good. So it's, for me, it's the key issue is how we can make this message loud enough so that all those girls and young women can listen to that message.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start asking questions from the audience. So we already talked about renewable energy careers. Let's see if this is a question. So from Jennifer was pointing out that they have high job placement. She's at a community college, but they have low female enrollment. Okay, so how can we facilitate stronger relationships, building, this is from Nicole, building among women across industries, sectors? For context, I'm not a scientist, but a budding lawyer, middle-aged, career changed. But to work in renewable energy sector, I need to be able to communicate and network with scientists, engineers, and understand the technical side of policy. Anybody want to tackle that?
Sure. So one place that I've found the opportunity to do this and found a lot of value, absolutely, from connecting across sectors, is through the organization that I mentioned, RISE, which is Women in Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy. And it is across the board in those industries. And so engineers like myself, but lawyers as well, communications centered folks. So, you know, there's conferences hosted by RISE, there's all sorts of events. My specific example is the peer mentoring program that I've really enjoyed participating in. I get matched with a group. There's 6 of us that are all in the same area. So we meet together and sort of rotate through who leads each session. So it's a nice opportunity to be learning from each other. And RISE provides some, here's some suggestions of topics, but if we don't like those topics, we can change them. So it's nice structure with flexibility, and it's been great. My current group, there's a couple of us who are engineers or scientists, and then there's a woman who leads communications at the National Renewable Energy Lab. So that's been for me a whole new perspective to hear from her, and I think she's similarly enjoying hearing from the more technical side. So that's one way, through one organization, that I've been able to make some of those connections, and definitely agree it's really, really valuable.
Anybody else?
So I would say, I'm not an engineer. I have a undergraduate degree in political science and a graduate degree, a master's in public administration. As I always like to say, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, but I know enough to do my job. And this person who brought in the question already has shown that they're committed to lifelong learning. And that's really what my philosophy has been, is to seek out those education opportunities. We're so fortunate in this digital age where there's so many online courses and virtual courses that one can take. Many are for free. When I started my women-owned business here in the district called Alpha Solar Group, one of the things that I did was I took a number of courses from an organization called HeatSpring to learn more about solar finance and some of the technical side of solar. And I continue to build on the knowledge base that I have So I think the thing, the advice that I would give is, one, take advantage of these opportunities, but two, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like Caitlin said, there's so many opportunities to learn from each other, and so many different perspectives. And I love talking about solar, so I'm sure somebody would love talking about their piece of the business and provide that information.
Marta, no? Chime in? Okay. The next question is for Caitlin. On your projects in the Caribbean, did you find any specific challenges in getting women involved there, or in less advantaged places?
Sure. I think my answer is both yes and no. So often, because of our role as a nonprofit organization, we're partnering with the government of specific islands and the electric utility company, and looking at energy transition for that island as a whole. And what I've kind of observed is that there are quite a few women in those organizations, some in very technical roles, and sort of really the powerhouses of these organizations, but not in the senior leadership and decision-making roles. So typically the Minister of Energy, the CEO of the utility, is not a woman. And so that's been interesting to be able to work with the women that are on their teams and that are doing a lot of the work to advance energy transitions. And that's part of, I mentioned the Women in Renewable Energy network that we've been establishing and supporting for island women, and establishing a mentoring program to try to change that and not have it be the mid-level is where women get stuck in island organizations, but have the opportunity to move into more senior roles as well. But then I think there's a broader component of just the overall communities that we're working in, and it's something where we're continuously trying to get better at, is how do we involve the broader communities, and particularly in the Caribbean, where women maybe are often leading the households more often. And so ensuring that the energy transition that's going on happens in an equitable way for the whole community that's part of the island. And a big part of that is having the voices of the community in the transition. So not just the Ministry of Energy and the utility company, but everyone. And so I think we're continually trying to do more and more to connect with the right stakeholders, and often that's women who are leaders in their communities as well, and involve them in the decision making that's going on.
Thank you. All right. I got a comment from Jill Clyburn. So just a call to those participating to feel encouraged to nominate yourself or your colleagues to be in leadership like ACES and other organizations, and then speak up for a new generation of women. So thank you, Jill. So the next question is from Dorothy Gehring. I'm a professor of architecture and sustainability. The number of women in architecture has stayed at about a third for the whole 30 years I've taught, and was what it was like when I was in school. Somehow the non-traditional fields just don't show up as options for girls. The lack of people in construction in general is creating a real place for women and LGBTQ. Any ideas about how we can actually get more people involved that wouldn't have even thought of these careers?
Yeah, one thing I'd add, we talked a bit about on the first question of sort of the opportunities just to outreach to more and more people and young people to share what are the options that are available, and hopefully get them thinking about them. I think another opportunity that organizations like this one and like we're doing is to recognize and emphasize role models. And so just highlight more and more examples of women who are working in these fields now. Even though the numbers may be small, there are women with a lot of expertise making a lot of impact in the clean energy fields. And so finding ways to elevate their stories more and more and in public forums, so that, there's the opportunity to see people that maybe look like you doing something that you hadn't thought about doing before, that opens up that idea of oh, maybe this is a field that I could, that I'd want to pursue.
One of the innovative things that we're doing at the DC Sustainable Energy Utility is we have internship and externship programs. The interns work directly in our office. They're usually college-age students, and this is focused on the district, and learn about what we do in terms of renewable energy and energy efficiency. The externs are people who are also college age or beyond. And what we do is we place them into businesses around the DC community so that they can learn a skill set, they can be mentored, and they can realize that green jobs are good jobs, and that these are the jobs of the future. And we have a cohort of about 10 to 20 people every quarter. And so we're really trying to train people to show them that, a green job is a viable career and get them out in the community. And we have a great placement rate. Once they've worked in the job, in general, the employer tends to hire that person. So it's a great pathway for people, and hopefully, it's a model that other communities can copy and use it as a pathway to get people into green jobs in their community.
I just wanted to add that I think we should, in order to reach younger girls who might be deciding or might be considering or maybe not considering engineering as an option or solar energy as an option, I think we need to talk not only about the technical part, which is super motivating for some of us, but we also need to talk about the significance of the work that we do, the fact that we are trying to make a better world. We are trying to fight climate change, which is one of the biggest challenges that we have now. And also about the fact that engineering and science has a lot of creativity. So sometimes engineering is portrayed as this discipline in which you are kind of a very square person who don't think, who doesn't like thinking about new things, and it's who always likes things to be done in a very specific and boring way. I don't think that's true. I think engineering is also about solving problems and finding creative solutions about problems and inventing new things. And sometimes we don't transmit this enough. And I think this could also be motivating, kind of changing a little bit this atmosphere of what is to be an engineer and what is the kind of job that we do. I think we should also, kind of prioritize this message.
Thank you, all of you. Okay, so I don't see other questions coming in, so I'm going to ask another one. And we're kind of coming to the end of our time anyway. So what I'd like is for each of you to share a short story, because we don't have very much time, 5 minutes total. Share a short story of somebody that you know has been influenced by either something you've said or you've done, or sometimes it's something very small. So I'll give you an example. For me is I give talks on renewable energy quite often, and I've been hiking in the mountains, and I'll come across somebody that'll say, I was inspired by your talk, and I decided to go into electrical engineering, or I decided to mentor someone, or to take that jump and take a class, something like that, because sometimes it's the smallest things that make an incredible impact. And I don't know your stories, but maybe just a short little story of somebody or something that you were able to, that really you saw that you impacted. Okay, somebody's gonna start.
I can start saying one small thing. I teach several courses, and I always try to make an effort to include references to female scientists, female or women that had made significant contribution to the topics that I'm discussing. Several times I get from the students, oh, I have never heard about that particular women. I thought what she did was quite interesting. This is a very small thing, but it's just make them aware that there has been a lot of significant women in whatever topic that we are discussing. I think these kind of small things that make you aware that you can also be part of that. I guess that's could be inspiring, or that's what I try to do.
Sure, and that made me think of an example. I'll build on Marta's story, and this is a group effort for sure. But in my local Society of Women Engineers section, we host an essay contest every year. We call it the Great Women in Science and Engineering Essay Contest, and it's focused on 6th graders. And so every year we select 5 different women scientists and engineers. And I think it on 2 levels. A lot of times for us, we don't know the stories of these women and the great work they did as well. So it's helping us build that knowledge as well. And then for the 6th graders, they select one of these women and write a short essay and submit those, and those get reviewed. And then the top finalists come to a big award ceremony where we really make a big deal. Their parents and their teachers come. And so it's an opportunity for those at the 6th grade level, girls and boys, to participate and learn about these role models in our history that we just don't hear about as much as maybe male scientists.
I'm just recounting and want to emphasize again the importance of mentoring. I don't have such a concrete example as that, but I can recall, at least a dozen people off the top of my head where we've had mentoring over the years. We've sat down for coffees, we've checked in with each other, we've offered mutual advice. And I see on both sides where I've benefited from the mentoring as well as where they've benefited from the conversations that we've had together. I think it's really rewarding to remember, even no matter how busy you are, to always offer that one little piece, that one little moment, that one little piece of time, that one little word of advice, because it really could be the difference that you make in someone's world. So important just to take the time and have the conversation.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're basically at the end of our time. We literally have a minute left. Can you folks as speakers go to the women in the chat room to hang out a little bit and maybe answer some questions? So that means you guys, not the rest of you, but just the panelists will have to log out and go back into the conference to the networking session, to the Women in Solar Forum. I do have a question that we don't have time to answer. I will put it out there and you guys can go into the forum and answer it there. But I want to thank everybody for participating. This is the weirdest time in the world. It's the first time we've ever done this virtually. I think it went really well, and I really appreciate everybody being here and just supporting this session, supporting these women. Thank you for your contributions. You'll be able to see it later if you want to share it or whatever you want. Okay, so the question is, people of color, this is from Pooja, people of color, women and minorities are disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change. Women of color also face tremendous unconscious bias, making it challenging for them to be recruited or promoted to leadership positions. What are some of the initiatives or strategies that work to increase representation, create more inclusive work environments, and amplify the voices of women of color in the clean energy industry space? All right, good, heavy question. I'll see everybody in the Women in Solar Energy Forum chat room. Thank you for coming. Take care.
Thank you, Marlene, for coordinating and for all your sage advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks.